If you want to know why some people at 70 look and feel like they are 50, while others can barely climb a flight of stairs by 60, do not look at their weight. Do not look at their cholesterol numbers. Look at two things almost nobody in medicine talks about together: their circulating stem cell count and how much invisible visceral fat is wrapped around their internal organs. Most people spend their entire lives measuring the wrong things. They track the number on the scale while the real aging is happening, invisibly inside. What they do not know is that these two problems, dormant stem cells and accumulating visceral fat, are not separate issues. They are the same vicious cycle feeding each other. And the research is now clear. Certain foods available at any grocery store can break that cycle at both ends simultaneously, in as little as 3 days. Your body already has 70 million stem cells waiting to be deployed, and it already has a built-in fat-burning furnace capable of targeting visceral fat specifically. Most people have never activated either one. Today I am going to show you how to activate both at the same time. Most people think stem cell activation requires paying thousands of dollars at exotic clinics, and that it is medicine only available to the wealthy. And most people believe that burning stubborn fat, especially the deep dangerous kind, requires extreme calorie restriction, suffering through deprivation, or some complicated pharmaceutical intervention. But after nearly 30 years in emergency medicine and regenerative medicine research, I have seen something that challenges both assumptions at once. The same compounds that activate stem cells also switch on your body's visceral fat-burning system. They work through the same inflammatory pathway and the same gut bacteria, and the protocol starts working measurably and biologically within 72 hours. Hi, I am a physician. I am an emergency medicine physician and regenerative medicine researcher. After nearly 30 years studying how the body heals itself, and why healing breaks down as we age, I witnessed something that fundamentally changed my understanding of the aging process. The patients who thrived, who remained strong, mentally sharp, and disease-free well into their 80s, were not genetically different from the patients who declined. They were not on special medications. They were consistently eating specific foods that kept two of the body's most powerful repair systems running: stem cell regeneration and visceral fat elimination. We were taught in medical school that aging is an inevitable decline, that stem cell activity falls off and there is nothing you can do, and that stubborn fat past a certain age is simply resistant to intervention. But the research tells a completely different story. In this video, I am going to show you exactly how to activate both systems simultaneously. Here is what we will cover: why visceral fat specifically destroys stem cell function, and why this is the hidden engine driving accelerated aging, the precise biological pathways through which certain foods simultaneously mobilize stem cells and incinerate visceral fat, the shocking clinical research proving that measurable changes begin in as little as 3 days of consistent intake, the exact 7-food protocol with specific amounts, not vague advice but precise doses from human clinical trials, and the most common mistakes that prevent people from getting results, even when they are trying. One quick favor: I see notes from people who have watched several of my lessons and did not realize they had not joined. Could you check your status right now? It is free, takes 2 seconds, and it helps this program reach more people like you, who want real science-based health information. Let me start with something that will completely reframe how you think about aging. Inside your body right now are approximately 70 million stem cells. These are your master repair cells, the biological construction crew your body uses to maintain every tissue, every blood vessel, and every organ. When you are young, this crew is massive, highly active, and constantly deploying throughout your body. A blood vessel gets stiff, and stem cells rebuild it. Joint cartilage begins wearing down, and stem cells reinforce it. Heart muscle experiences micro-damage, and stem cells migrate there to repair it. Think of stem cells like a construction crew living inside your building. When they are active, the building is constantly being maintained. Small cracks get filled before they become structural damage. The plumbing gets repaired before it floods. But here is what happens as we age. That crew does not disappear. The workers are still there, but they have retreated to the break room. They are dormant, and something has locked them there. Something that until recently, most researchers were not connecting to stem cell biology at all. That something is visceral fat. Now most people think about fat in one category. They picture the fat they can see and pinch, the subcutaneous fat under the skin on their arms, thighs, and belly. That fat is cosmetically frustrating, but it is relatively harmless metabolically. It sits there quietly. The fat that is actively damaging your biology is invisible. It is visceral fat, the fat packed deep inside your abdominal cavity, wrapped around your liver, your pancreas, your intestines, your kidneys. You cannot see it, cannot feel it, and cannot measure it on a bathroom scale. Think of your body like a FedEx shipping box. The box itself might be small, thin even, but you can pack that box completely full of styrofoam packing peanuts. From the outside, the box looks normal, but when you open it, it is under enormous internal pressure. That is visceral fat. A person can wear a size medium, look fit in the mirror, and be metabolically sick because their organs are surrounded by inflammatory fat. The scale tells you nothing about this. Here is where the story gets critical, and this connection is what makes the 3-day protocol possible. Visceral fat is not passive storage. It is a metabolically active endocrine organ. It continuously secretes inflammatory chemicals called cytokines, interleukin-6, tumor necrosis factor alpha, and C-reactive protein. These chemicals enter your bloodstream and circulate throughout your entire body, including your bone marrow where your stem cells are stored. And those inflammatory cytokines send a very clear signal to your stem cells. Stand down, stay dormant. The repair is not worth doing. This is the vicious cycle that accelerates aging. Visceral fat accumulates. Inflammatory cytokines rise. Stem cells go dormant. Tissues stop getting repaired, metabolism worsens, and more visceral fat accumulates around and around. And because it is invisible, most people have no idea it is happening. Now here is what genuinely excited me when I first examined this data. Certain foods, common, affordable foods, break this cycle at both ends simultaneously. They mobilize stem cells directly from bone marrow through polyphenol signaling, and they activate a specialized fat-burning tissue called brown fat, which preferentially incinerates visceral fat as fuel. As visceral fat decreases, the inflammatory suppression on your stem cells weakens. Both systems come alive at the same time. 3 days of consistent intake creates the first measurable shifts. Within 72 hours, the inflammatory markers that visceral fat secretes, the ones locking your stem cells in the break room, begin measurably decreasing. That is the ignition point. That is what try it for 3 days means. It is not that the transformation is complete in 3 days, but the biological switch gets flipped. The construction crew gets the signal that the break room lockdown is ending. Let me break down exactly how this works, because understanding the mechanisms tells you precisely why this protocol is specific and not interchangeable with just eating healthy. Mechanism 1. Direct stem cell mobilization via polyphenol signaling. When you consume foods rich in proanthocyanidins, a subclass of polyphenols found in deeply pigmented berries, dark chocolate and green tea, these compounds enter your bloodstream and interact with receptors on the surface of stem cells inside your bone marrow. The interaction triggers a mobilization cascade. It is the chemical equivalent of pulling a fire alarm. The signal says there is work to be done. Deploy. The stem cells leave the bone marrow and enter circulation. Once circulating, they perform something remarkable: targeted migration. They move only toward areas of active damage or inflammation, stiff blood vessels, inflamed joints, or stressed organ tissue. This is healing from the inside out. But here is the critical condition. If the inflammatory environment from visceral fat remains high, those mobilized stem cells encounter so much systemic cytokine noise that their directional signaling becomes confused. Reducing visceral fat simultaneously is not optional. It is what allows the mobilized stem cells to actually do their job. Mechanism 2. Brown fat thermogenesis targeting visceral fat. You have two fundamentally different types of fat in your body. White fat is storage fat, the kind that accumulates in your abdomen and around your organs. Brown fat is entirely different. It is thin, dense, and metabolically furious. It is located primarily around your neck, collarbone, and between your shoulder blades. It is packed with iron-rich mitochondria. Those mitochondria are what give it the brown color. When activated, those mitochondria fire up and generate heat through a process called thermogenesis. Here is the remarkable part. Brown fat gets its fuel from white fat. Specifically, it preferentially pulls from visceral fat first, the most metabolically available energy source. Brown fat is good fat that burns dangerous fat. Cold exposure activates brown fat by triggering epinephrine and norepinephrine release, which bind to beta-3 adrenergic receptors on brown fat cells, turning the furnace on. But here is what the research now shows. Specific compounds in certain foods activate the exact same beta-3 adrenergic receptor pathway without any cold exposure. When that receptor activates, it triggers the production of uncoupling protein 1, or UCP1 inside the mitochondria. UCP1 uncouples energy production from energy storage. Instead of saving energy as ATP, the mitochondria burn it off as heat. The furnace runs, visceral fat melts, the inflammatory signal suppressing your stem cells quiets. Mechanism 3. Precision inflammation modulation. Certain polyphenols, particularly EGCG, from green tea and anthocyanins from berries, act as precision dimmer switches on the chronic inflammation cycle. They reduce C-reactive protein, interleukin-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha by 30 to 50% within 8 weeks. Acute inflammation is necessary and good. It is your immune system doing housekeeping. But chronic inflammation from visceral fat is the enemy. It is like having a campfire ember constantly burning under your cellular machinery, just enough heat to keep everything slightly damaged, and just enough cytokine signal to keep your stem cells perpetually standing down. When these polyphenols lower that inflammatory baseline, two things happen at once. The visceral fat to inflammation cycle is interrupted, and the stem cell suppression signal weakens. Both systems begin recovering simultaneously from a single biochemical intervention. Mechanism 4. The gut microbiome bridge. Here is where it gets interesting. There is a specific bacteria called Akkermansia muciniphila that lives in the mucus lining of your intestines. Akkermansia is what researchers call a guardian bacteria. It strengthens your gut barrier, reduces systemic inflammation, and critically it talks directly to your immune system through the gut wall, activating the same immune cells that regulate stem cell activity. People with high Akkermansia levels show lower visceral fat accumulation rates, higher circulating stem cell counts, and more robust immune function. Research from the Gustave Roussy Cancer Center in France studied 200 cancer patients receiving immunotherapy. The only significant difference between patients who responded well, whose bodies fought cancer effectively, and those who did not respond, was gut bacteria composition, specifically Akkermansia. The responders had high levels, the non-responders had virtually none. This bacteria is that important to your body's core defense and repair systems. Pomegranate increases Akkermansia levels 6-fold in 3 weeks. That is the gut microbiome connection to both stem cell activity and visceral fat regulation activated by a single food. The research behind this dual activation approach is not theoretical. Let me give you specific numbers. At the University of California, adults over 60 with metabolic syndrome receive dietary compounds equivalent to 2 cups of mixed berries and 3 cups of green tea daily for 12 weeks. The intervention group showed a 94% increase in circulating stem cells measured by flow cytometry. Simultaneously, the same participants showed a 1.6-inch reduction in waist circumference, a direct surrogate measure of visceral fat loss. One dietary intervention produced 2 measurable biological outcomes. At Tehran University of Medical Sciences, 63 adults ages 35 to 65 with type 2 diabetes drank 4 cups of green tea daily for 2 months. They lost nearly 2 inches of waist circumference. Their fasting blood glucose dropped, and inflammatory markers decreased by clinically significant margins. The researchers observed reduction in inflammatory cytokines directly correlated with improvements in cellular repair markers. Less visceral fat and less inflammation meant better regenerative capacity. At McMaster University, 26 adults, averaging age 65 with documented cellular decline, received a concentrated whole food extract, rich in polyphenol and omega-3 compounds. After 12 weeks, muscle biopsies using electron microscopy showed a 39% increase in cellular regeneration markers. Participants improved their 6-minute walk test by an average of 72 meters. VO2 max increased by 18%. These were quantifiable biological changes measured by laboratory instruments, not subjective reporting. At the University of Oslo, a kiwi consumption study of 43 healthy adults using the COMET assay, a technique that photographs broken DNA strands under a microscope, found that participants eating 1 kiwi daily showed 60% less DNA damage compared to baseline. Those eating 3 kiwis daily showed 60% improvement in DNA repair capacity. Critically, measurable reductions in inflammatory biomarkers appeared within the first 3 days. That is the foundation of the Try It for 3 days goal. Here is the exact protocol. These are specific foods at specific doses drawn from clinical research, not general suggestions. 1 cup of mixed berries daily. Blueberries, strawberries, raspberries or blackberries, approximately 148 grams, fresh or frozen. Frozen is often higher in polyphenols, because berries are harvested and frozen at peak ripeness. Eat them in the morning. The anthocyanins directly interact with bone marrow stem cell receptors, triggering mobilization. They simultaneously reduce the inflammatory cytokines from visceral fat that keep stem cells dormant. If you do one thing from this video, make it this. 2-3 cups of properly brewed green tea daily, or 1 cup of matcha. Heat water to 175 degrees Fahrenheit. Steaming but not boiling. Steep for 3 to 5 minutes. Add lemon. Vitamin C stabilizes EGCG and increases absorption 6-fold. Do not add dairy milk. Protein binds to catechins and drops absorption to 20%. Plant-based milk is fine. The EGCG activates the beta-3 adrenergic receptor in brown fat, triggering UCP1-mediated thermogenesis. Brown fat burns visceral fat. Simultaneously, EGCG reduces inflammatory cytokines by up to 50%. 3. Seafood. 3 times per week. Any seafood. The minimum threshold for activating brown fat through omega-3 fatty acids is just 284 mg per serving, which is the amount in cod, one of the lowest omega-3 fish available. That equals 4 medium Gulf shrimp, 8 oysters, or half a piece of halibut the size of half a deck of cards. The omega-3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA, increase brown fat mass and activity and reduce the visceral fat-driven inflammatory cascade that suppresses stem cell function. 4. 2 small squares of dark chocolate daily, about 30 grams, at least 70% cocoa. Look for non-alkalized or non-Dutched on the label. Dutch processing destroys most flavanols. Have it in the afternoon around 3 o'clock to 4 p.m. The epicatechin in high cocoa chocolate is one of the most potent natural activators of AMPK, your cell's energy sensor, which triggers both stem cell mobilization and mitochondrial biogenesis in brown fat. 5. 1 to 3 kiwis daily, for maintenance and prevention. 1 kiwi for active cellular repair or higher-risk individuals. The vitamin C in kiwi directly supports enzymatic repair of broken DNA strands, the same strand breaks that accumulate when stem cells are chronically suppressed. Kiwis shift gut microbiome composition within 24 hours, faster than almost any other single food. Eat the skin if it is organic and thoroughly washed. 4 ounces of pure pomegranate juice nightly, or half a fresh pomegranate. Use unsweetened 100% pomegranate, with no grape or apple juice filler. The L-gitannins are metabolized by gut bacteria into urolithin A, which triggers mitophagy, clearing old damaged mitochondria while simultaneously feeding and multiplying Akkermansia muciniphylla. Take this before bed. Your gut bacteria work on the L-gitannins overnight while you sleep. 7. 1 avocado most days, or at least 5 per week. 1 medium avocado contains approximately 10 grams of fiber, both soluble and insoluble. The soluble fiber directly feeds Akkermansia. The monounsaturated fatty acids reduce the inflammatory signaling from visceral fat tissue. The potassium supports the cellular ion balance that stem cells require for proper migration to sites of tissue damage. From nearly 30 years of clinical practice, here are the nuances most people miss. Timing amplifies everything. Eat your berries at breakfast. Have dark chocolate at 3 p.m. Drink pomegranate juice before bed. Stop eating at least 3 hours before sleep. Active digestion diverts resources away from stem cell deployment and visceral fat clearance. The 12 to 13-hour overnight fast is non-negotiable for serious results. Stop eating by 8 p.m. and do not eat again until 8 o'clock or 9 a.m. Brown fat activates and pulls fuel from visceral fat stores throughout the night. As visceral fat decreases, the inflammatory suppression on your stem cells weakens. Both outcomes result from one simple habit. Combine green tea and seafood in the same meal. They activate brown fat through different receptor pathways. EGCG through the beta-3 adrenergic route and omega-3s through the peroxisome proliferator pathway, creating additive thermogenic effects. Measure waist circumference, not just scale weight. Measure at the belly button level every 2 weeks. A half-inch reduction is significant. It means visceral fat is disappearing and the inflammatory environment around your stem cells is clearing. Consistency is the key variable. 30 days of consistent intake produces measurable changes in circulating stem cell counts. 90 days produces pronounced and visible effects. The protocol is a biological switch that flips in 3 days and compounds over months. Common mistakes include inconsistency, eating berries and drinking green tea for 3 days then stopping for 2 weeks when life gets busy will not work. The 3-day shift is the ignition, not the destination. Stem cell counts become measurably elevated after 30 days of sustained intake. Sporadic effort produces sporadic and disappointing results. Expecting immediate medication-like results is another mistake. This protocol works through cumulative biological shifts, not acute drug effects. You are rebuilding dormant systems that have been suppressed for months or years. The analogy is charging a dead battery. The charger works from the first moment, but the phone does not turn on until the charge crosses the threshold. Substituting supplements for whole foods is also problematic. You can buy polyphenol extracts, EGCG pills, pomegranate capsules, or omega-3 gels. These have their place, but a cup of blueberries contains not just anthocyanins, but vitamin C, vitamin K, manganese, dietary fiber, and dozens of copolyphenols that enhance each other's absorption in ways we are still discovering. That synergy is the mechanism. An isolated capsule provides the molecule without the orchestra. Finally, do not undermine the protocol with inflammatory foods. Processed meats, excessive added sugar, and excessive alcohol directly counteract everything the polyphenols are doing. You cannot pour fuel on the inflammatory fire with one hand and try to put it out with the other. Aging does not mean your stem cells have to stay dormant. It does not mean visceral fat has to keep accumulating. The patients I have seen in my clinical career who reversed early metabolic disease, who regained energy they had accepted as permanently lost, or who moved without the joint pain they had written off as their new normal, were not genetically exceptional. They were not lucky. They consistently did small daily things that activated their body's natural regenerative systems. They broke the cycle. Less visceral fat led to less inflammation, which meant more active stem cells, which meant better tissue repair, which meant slower metabolic decline. These systems exist in you right now. Your 70 million stem cells are not gone. They are waiting in the break room for the alarm bell to ring. Your brown fat furnace exists and is capable of activating at any age. The Akkermansia bacteria that connects your gut to your immune system and your stem cell activity can be cultivated in weeks. You have more biological resources available to you than you have been led to believe. You can start today. Here is everything we have covered. Your body contains approximately 70 million stem cells capable of activation at any age. But visceral fat suppresses them through chronic cytokine signaling. These are two sides of the same problem. Brown fat is your built-in metabolic furnace that specifically burns visceral fat as fuel when activated by cold or specific food compounds, particularly EGCG from green tea and omega-3 fatty acids from seafood. The Akkermansia muciniphila bacteria bridges your gut microbiome to both stem cell activity and visceral fat regulation. Pomegranate increases it sixfold in 3 weeks. The 7-food protocol. 8. 1 cup mixed berries daily. 148 grams, fresh or frozen for stem cell mobilization via proanthocyanidins. 9. 3 cups green tea or 1 cup matcha daily. At 175 degrees with lemon and no dairy for brown fat activation and anti-inflammatory effects. 10. Seafood 3 times per week. Any seafood with a minimum 284 milligrams of omega-3 per serving for brown fat activation and reduced visceral fat inflammation. 11. 2 squares dark chocolate daily, 30 grams, 70% plus cocoa, non-Dutched for AMPK and UCP1 activation. 12. 1 to 3 kiwis daily for DNA repair and a gut microbiome shift within 24 hours. 13. 4 ounces pure pomegranate juice nightly for Akkermansia growth, urolithin A production, and mitophagy for overnight repair. 14. 1 avocado most days for fiber for Akkermansia and monounsaturated fats to reduce visceral fat signaling. Key timing rules. Stop eating 3 hours before bed. Maintain a 12 to 13 hour overnight fast. Drink pomegranate juice before bed. Eat berries in the morning. Have dark chocolate and your final green tea in the afternoon. On day 3, measurable initial inflammatory shifts begin. On day 30, measurable stem cell count elevation and visible waist circumference reduction occur. On day 90, there is pronounced sustained biological regeneration. Your health is not predetermined by your genes or your age. It is influenced enormously by what you choose to eat and how you live. You have more control than you have been led to believe. If you found this information valuable, share this with someone who needs it. Nearly 35% of American adults have metabolic syndrome, and the vast majority do not know their stem cell activity has been silenced by visceral fat they cannot even see. This information could genuinely change someone's health trajectory. Check out previous research, where I break down specific foods that fight cancer at the cellular level, and the complete visceral fat elimination protocol. The science connects across all of it. I will see you in the next one. The doctor out.